Welcome to On Time in Full, a podcast from Designed Conveyor Systems.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast episode of On Time in Full, brought to you by DCS. I'm your host, Gabrielle, and right now I'm joined by Brian Stewart, who's Engineering Supervisor of Product Design. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about Brian's background and his overall career journey to DCS and just what makes them stand out in the industry. So welcome, Brian.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Gabby. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, you're actually in a newly appointed role from DCS. This hasn't been there before. This is the first time for them to really have someone in your position with the product and design group. So, I want to ask you, with your firsthand experience, what need do you think that DCS saw for this role that you're in to be created in the market?
Well, for one, with how the e-commerce industry has just taken off in the last few years, there's been more people that have been ordering online. And it's just, with that, there's been challenges during design process for facilities. And when those challenges presented themselves, DCS decided, hey, we're going to need somebody to be able to fill in those gaps and have somebody full-time to be able to design that. And so they went out looking and poof, my job was created. And so now I'm here at DCS and hopefully solving problems on certain facilities. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, could you go ahead and take us just through a day-to-day? What is it that you do in your industry, in your role?
Well, it can all depend. There's different aspects of it with the different conveyors that we have. We have most conveyors, all conveyors have drives. And so we use those, we use platforms to access those drives for maintenance and for anything like that. Then there's the unique design elements that happen whenever a few conveyors come together and they interact in a way that's just not typical. And so there has to be a special chute or a special piece of equipment to fit to make it work. We've had many times where they're running a system and we sit there and looking at it and think, well, we could do this a little bit better. And so they're like, let's create this and let's get a prototype made and get it to site. So that's kind of like day to day.
Wonderful. Well, Brian, taking a look at where you started versus where you kind of are right now, because now you can see through these years that you've been there, just kind of the differences or kind of your evolution through the role. Just how has your role evolved since you started there?
In the beginning, it was strictly just, I feel like it was kind of the part of a system that wasn't necessarily maybe put at the top of the list that would be needed later, but not necessarily like right at the moment. And considering the growth, they realized that is very important. And so in the beginning, it was, I just want to let everybody know in engineering, we have a designer, we have somebody on staff that can figure these problems out. And so as I guess, quote unquote, the word got out, people were they realized they could rely on me and they could set things up. And so it just kind of involved more of custom products, custom situations. And then it just kind of transitioned, realizing that there were more and more situations that presented themselves. And so we needed to add more people to a team. They started recruiting heavily, and then the product design group was created, and it seemed like it was really fast because I've only been here at that time it was like a year and 7 months, and I was sitting there wondering how I was going to complete everything. They put together this team, and it was just like, okay, this is great, but who's going to lead it? And so we went through, I went through the internal process of vetting and everything, and they decided that I would be appropriately or a good fit for as a supervisor. And so that's kind of how it's evolved down. That's where I am.
How it all came to be. Well, Brian, anyone who's been in the workforce at some point, they know that company culture, I mean, it can make or break a job or a career. So I wanted to ask you, just in what ways has being in the DCS company culture impacted you, especially since you're a newer addition to the team? You're kind of seeing this through a new lens. You know, in what ways have you felt maybe supported through your journey? You know, what makes DCS different from other places to work, and how have they supported growth in your career?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Starting, it was kind of almost felt like too good to be true in a way. At DCS, it is. I feel like it's more of an employee centered program. Sorry, an employee centered company, and oh, and by the way, we make conveyors. You know, it's just kind of one of those things. It feels like it's a side thing, and so knowing that and going through it and realizing that you have the support from management, you have the support from other people in the company, that the ultimate goal is to make the employee experience the best. And then in turn, you sit there and you go, okay, I don't mind spending 40 hours plus, if not even longer, to get a project finished, because I know as where I work, the company is supporting me in everything that I do. And that just is amazing in itself.
Oh yeah, I mean, it makes a very significant difference when you know that someone's there and supporting you through your journey, especially through your career. Well, you know, I wanted to also ask you: have there been any significant challenges that you might have faced over the past few years that you've been there? Because how long have you been in this role for, Brian?
Well, currently, for as a supervisor, it's only been since let's see, that would be let's see, June, July, August, about 8 months or so. As a supervisor, a year and some change before of just being the guy that would do it. Um, you know, we want to sit there and go, hey, we want a job that's going to be worry free. I mean, that's ideal, but it's not going to happen. There's always going to be problems, and the idea that you can sit there and you can collaborate with, you know, with the team or with our on-site guys, and come up with a solution that's going to work, that's efficient, that we can make things happen. Um, we have so many people remote and so many people that are in the office, and it's kind of hard to collaborate sometimes. So you've got that, but we've been able to adjust, set up meetings through different forms of, you know, connection and everything. So I mean, it's been tough, but it's also been easy, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to pinpoint one part. So
As a follow up to that, you know, I was going to ask because you've been in the supervisor role for 8 months now, and I mean, I'm sure. I mean, you just mentioned there's just the challenges that you face every day in the day to day, but then also, I mean, with the remote work, collaboration can be difficult. But you know, I want to ask in the ways that DCS has helped support these challenges, just based off of the company culture. And I mean, we're talking a little bit about collaboration. Do you have any more examples of something like along these
yeah,
lines?
we had you're sitting there and so, you know, some people being remote, some people not. You sit there and you, my mind kind of goes to the point of I'm a little bit on an island sometimes, and then you go, oh wait, I have a whole team of people that I need to talk to, and then you have the meeting and everything's great. Had a situation where there was a problem. I'm in Tennessee, and so the situation was about 800 miles away ish, somewhere around there, that there was an issue with a piece of equipment, and we needed a fix, and we needed it quickly because the customer was needing it. They were needing to start. They needed, you know, everything was on fire, you know, per se. And so it was kind of neat in a way, because we were able to gather the information that we needed, be able to design the piece that was needed to retrofit the piece of equipment, have it delivered, have it installed, and then you're sitting there going, okay, it's been a couple weeks, I haven't heard anything, and then you get a message and a video saying it works, and you're sitting there going, oh, this is awesome. And so, so you sit there and you watch the video and you're like, okay, well, that worked. And, then you sit there a couple months later and there's meetings in the office, and this gentleman comes back that was actually in charge of that project, and he wants to meet me, and he comes back and he introduces himself, and then he just puts his arms around me and gives me the big old bear hug, and I'm like, whoa. And he's like, no, I really appreciate what you did. And the idea that all of that wouldn't have happened is if we didn't have a company that was willing to, be supportive and to push you to do better, and things you don't have to necessarily worry about. You can focus strictly on what you're doing, and you can make the problem go away. It'll take a minute. It's not going to be overnight, but you'll get it taken care of. And so I think with that, DCS is really good at that.
Well, that's fantastic to hear, because sometimes just the best, what you're describing, sometimes the best projects come about because of just that little push, that challenge that kind of makes you think a little bit quicker on your feet. And I'm sure the design process might have been a bit challenging just with that time frame, but it came out with a fantastic product and result that resulted in a lot of gratitude. Oh, well, Brian, definitely. Where do you see the industry's future headed, just in terms of how companies will be building and distributing their products? What challenges do you kind of anticipate might be present, and just how do you see DCS factoring into it?
Yeah, I think with the challenges that have happened in the last few years, just watching it from the sideline first, and then actually being in the middle of it, coming on as a designer at DCS, it's just going to go up. The idea of less people shopping at brick and mortar and doing more online has turned the way turned how everything goes. And so you're sitting there and you're thinking that, well, okay, so now all these parcel and just DNF projects or DNF vendors all have these facilities that need to be updated because they need to stay up with the times, because everybody's doing the online shopping and whatnot. And so they need to move packages around. And then just, these companies are trying to grow, and they're trying to grow responsibly. And I feel like that they are looking at integrators that have done the same, that have been able to adjust to what has been going on, be able to grow responsibly. So we're not going so much up and then having to worry about what else is going on, and then to be able to fill in the gap. And so then the vendor looks and says, okay, this is great. Let's use you as an integrator. And I think DCS can fill that role because we've done that. We've grown responsibly. And it's just going up for us in the future.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And that closes the conversation for today. So thank you, Brian, for joining us on today's podcast to just discuss your background and career journey to DCS, and ultimately just what makes them stand out in the industry. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, Gabby, thanks. Thank you so much for having me on. So it was really fun.
Of course. And as always, if you want to learn more, please visit designedconveyor.com and look for this podcast wherever it is you get your podcasts at. I've been your host, Gabrielle. Thanks for tuning in.